everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from September 11th, 2020, and I'm recording this on March 12th, 2021. As always, I give those dates so that you understand when this information was actually the most relevant, because things can change. New information can come out that can change where the trajectory of these books, where the prices are at. As always, also, we're looking back at the Comic Tom, Key Collector, Hottest Trending Comics of the Week, and the CBSI Hot Top 10. They each put out a list of 10 each week. Technically, Key Collector puts out a list of 20, but Tom reports on 10 of them. I just take his 10, the CBSI 10, and see what they're doing 6 months later, so that we can all learn a little bit about why these books got hot, what factors maybe kept them hot, what factors made them maybe fall back a little bit. So we all make better decisions when chasing those hot books about whether or not to be patient or to jump on them while we can. So this week we got 19 books. So let's get into this list and see what we can learn. First up, we have Outlawed #1. This is the first appearance of Cradle. This is the wraparound variant. Basically, this was kind of part of this whole Outlawed thing was a bunch of young heroes were featured. This Cradle was an organization that was basically trying to monitor young heroes. I don't know where the storyline's gone. I didn't read any of it. But back then, it came out right kind of before the lockdown and everything kind of went to crap about a year ago. And then so they had basically decided a bunch of people kind of got interested in this book after the fact. It was a relatively low print right before the lockdown. There were some firsts in it. So this one was going for $25, $35 raw for this wraparound variant. Now it's a $5 to $20 book. 9.8 is going for $50 to $75. So it hasn't really maintained. It's been a bit of a... I actually thought it would do worse than this. It actually has been a little bit of an I'll be back, but it is definitely down a little bit. And so if you want to get in on this book, now is a better time to do it. Next, we have another variant for the same book. This is the 1 in 50 Anna Rudd variant. Same thing as above, but this was a 1 in 50 on a low print book. So people apparently love this cover with Miles, Kamala, and Riri on it. This book was going for $380 to $500 raw. 9.8 hit $1,900 for a sale, which is just huge number for a relatively brand new book. I thought this one might do well just because of the cover, that it would be rare enough that people would stay on it, but no, it's fallen back as well, actually significantly more than the other one. It's down to a $250 book raw, 9.8, going for $800 to $1,000, which is a really good value for a 1 in 50 from this year, but just not near that almost $2,000 value that people were buying it for 6 months ago. So yeah, this one's fallen back a lot. Still a really good cover, or a really popular cover. It's still moving for good value, just not near what it was at 6 months ago. Next, we have Something is Killing the Children, #10. This has just been one of the hottest series. It's on a variant is on the list, it seems like almost every week, now or back then. This Ward 1 in 25 was going for $60 at release, so a little over double ratio. Currently, it's still setting in that $50 to $75 range, so it's been very steady. Something is Killing Children is just a super hot series. I know they're on a short hiatus before they come back and kind of give her origin story. So the momentum with this book and this series this book has actually been pretty steady, unlike most of the things in the series, which have just continued to go up. But yeah, the momentum with Something's Killing Children is huge, and this book still going for more than double ratio. Next, we have Spider-Man Black Cat Strikes #5. So I did a little bit of cover / comic buzz there to start with the Outlaw, but we're into covers right now. But this is Spider-Man Black Cat Strikes #5. The In-Hyuk Lee 1 in 25. Raw copies of this were going for double ratio at $50 back then. Now they're going for about $30. So this is a pretty typical result for a 1 in 25. Basically, most 1 in 25s either don't do anything when they come out, they go for about double ratio and then fall back to ratio slightly above kind of range, or they go for double triple ratio and then they fall back to about double ratio, And it's very rare that one just keeps going up or goes way up and stays way up. But this is pretty typical. A book that a 1 in 25 that goes to double ratio, then falls back to around ratio values. And that's what's happened with this one. Not a lot of them for sale. There was only like 2 recent sales, only like 3 listed. So this may ultimately become a bit of a ghost. We'll see. But for now, it was definitely an I'll be back. Next, we have Larfleeze Christmas Special #1. This Brett Booth 1 in 10. So I have no idea what prompted this, but this book was a $10 book with just a couple sales in July, and then suddenly they were talking about it. A couple copies went for around 100, a little more. I thought this was a huge trap, but this has continued to sell for just under that value. $80 to $90 is where it's going right now for sales. So not sure. I mean, it's a cool Larfleeze cover, but not sure really what else is driving this. Maybe that's it. So with that, we got a couple more covers before we get into some more comic buzz. We have Clone Wars Battle Tales #3, the Momoko Virgin Store variant, limited to 500 with Darth Maul on the cover. This thing was going for $200 after being a $50 to $60 pre-sale item for the Virgin cover. Now it's down to $60 to $80. 9.8s can be had for just under 200. So yeah, this one turned into a bit of a trap. I have like most of these Momoko Star Wars covers, although she overall is a little hit or miss for me. But these Star Wars ones I've been a big fan of. But this one has, unlike the Yoda and the Rey covers, this one has come back significantly more than those did. So this one hasn't really maintained the way I thought it might compared to some of the other Momoko covers. Next, we have Wonder Woman #1, the Milo Manera Italian Virgin Museum Edition. So basically, this was an Italian book released in Italy. This museum edition, raw copies were going for 150 plus back then. 9.8 sold for 300 plus. We haven't had any recent 9.8 sales to go off of in the last 3 months, so I'm just going to kind of leave it. It's still kind of out there in that range. Raw copies have come back a little bit, but not much. Yeah, I mean, there was still a $150 sale. Most of the sales are now 100 to 120ish range, but there's a decent range on what these are going for. A popular cover, I guess. Probably one that's a little bit hard to find just because of where it came from, although there were several actually listed on eBay. Next, we have Superman #25, the Rice 1 in 25 design variant, and this is the first appearance of Sinmar, who is the character on the cover. This was going for $35 back then. Now it's a $5 to $15 book. Turned out not to be necessarily a lot of interest in this particular character, and at least so far hasn't really amounted to anything. I will say, like I say, it's 5 to 15 now. It actually was like a $15 to $25 book back in July. Sorry, I got my notes on my computer screen, and my computer screen went to sleep for me. So yeah, it's now that it was back in January. It was a $15, $20 book, so it has been slowly just continuing to creep back down, and now it's like a 5 to 15 book. Next, we have Firepower #1, the 1 per store gold foil variant. Back then, this was going for $50 to $60. I thought this wouldn't do much because I hadn't heard any real buzz on Firepower as a series. I thought, well, that's only going to matter if the series really is doing something. Since then, I've heard more and more buzz. I've heard more people talking about this series as being pretty good, as being really good. So yeah, heard more, and this book has actually performed pretty well. It's $30 to $50. It's down a little bit. 9.8s are going for $125, $200. But there does seem to be some sustained interest in Firepower as a series. I think it's maybe been on a hiatus and getting ready to come back. I think I could be wrong on that. I feel like that's what I heard. I could be confusing it with a different series. Next, we are going to move into a little more into comic buzz, and we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #105. This is the first appearance of Lita as an adult. She's an albino turtle. And basically, I guess her first appearance is 101. She appears as a child, and in this one, she time travels back from the future to help them with something. I haven't been reading Turtles, so maybe a series I should start because I've heard a lot of good things about this. But anyway, back then her first appearance was going for $10 to $25. So going 10 to 20, 9.8 will cost you 50 to 70. So it's the first appearance of a turtle character. It's always going to have at least a little bit of value. We'll see if they do anything with her in the series that causes us to kind of go the Jenica route, or if she just kind of maintains as kind of a background character. Next, we have Ruins of Ravencroft, Carnage, #1. This is the first appearance of Cortland Cassidy. I think this has been on the list a couple times. We talked about it. Back then, it was going for 10 to 15. 9.8s were hitting 130. Now it's going for 5 to 15, which is about the same range for a raw copy, but 9.8s are way down. They're down to like a $50 to $70 book. So yeah, this one's a bit of an I'll be back. We'll see if anything happens with Cortland Cassidy. He's Cletus's ancestor. I don't know if he's his father or further back ancestor. I'm actually not certain on that, but that's why this book was hot. They thought there would be something going on here. We'll see if they can do anything with this character going forward. Next, we have Venom #9, the first full appearance of Dylan Brock. I know he actually is a cameo in 7, I guess is what they're calling it, and this is first full. Back then, this was had jumped up to a $70 book raw. 9.8s were hitting 300, all in the build-up to King in Black and the hype. Now, my prediction on this was that it would be like this would continue to probably climb through the end of the King in Black story, and then it might be a little bit of an I'll be back. We're coming to the end of the King in Black, and it's actually already kind of dropped back a little bit. Raw copies are going for 40 to 60. 9.8s are down to 2 to 250, so it has dropped back a little bit. A little better time to buy it. I was a little surprised that it had already dropped back some. We'll see what role he plays in the finale, and with kind of Case's run wrapping up on Venom here with issue 200, I believe. So we'll see where we get. But yeah, Dylan is still a popular character, and I have the feeling will continue to be used somewhere amongst all the symbiotes. Next, we're going to move into. We have a couple of weird books on the list this week, and this is the first one. This is Comic Scene #31. So this is a magazine, and it had an article on Batman the Animated Series back in 1992. And in that article, the article was not about Harley, but in that article there was a picture of Harley, and this was prior to her first appearance in comics in Batman Adventures 12. So people were jumping on this as a true first of Harley, even though it really wasn't about her. It was just a single image in the article that had her in it. People were paying $115 for a raw copy. A 9.8 hit 400. I wasn't very high on this book. The last sale for it was back in January, and there's a couple of these magazines that went for $1. Now, I will say that listing didn't list this part of it. Didn't list that this had this Harley article or whatever in it. So people may not realize what they were buying or selling or whatever. Before that, there was only the other two sales were clear back in December. There was one for 130, one for 100. Right now, listings are all around $100 for this book, and there just hasn't been any sales. People are just not. Yeah, it's not a comic book appearance, so that's not. I realize there's an image of her in a magazine, but that's a little different, at least to me. We'll see if anything happens with this. But yeah, people jumped on this thinking, oh, true first. And to me, this is not a true first. But with that, we'll move into, we have one DC movie related book and then a bunch of MCU books. And our DC movie book is Superboy #9. First appearance of King Shark. And I say movie, but this is really like multiple things were coming together to keep this book kind of going. A few weeks ago, we had some books related to the DC fandom that we talked about on our look back. This was one of them, I believe. And this book's at this point was going for $50 to $60 raw. 9.8s were up to 200. And really, this had to do with the higher profile of the character after the Harley Quinn animated show, where he plays a fairly big part. He's going to be in the Suicide Squad movie, and we've seen images of that. And he's also in the new Suicide Squad game that's coming, and we'd seen images of that. So it was just a higher notice of this character back then, which caused this book to move up. I thought, maybe this character would stay a little higher just because there's going to be this kind of sustained use and interest. And that seems to be what's happened. It is down a little bit. It's down to a $20 to $40 book. 9.8s are down to 100 to 160 kind of range. So fairly wide range on those 9.8s, depending on auction or buy it now kind of thing. But still doing pretty well for King Shark. He's definitely kind of moved to a different level, I would say, in terms of what this value is going to be going forward. Next, we're going to move into what I kind of lumped together, some MCU stuff and MCU spec. And first up, we have America #1, the second McElveen variant of the second print with America Chavez on the cover. So there appears they put this on the list because there was some market manipulation going on and they wanted to talk about it, I guess, on Tom and Key Collector. Basically, there were two 9.8 sales for $750 and $1,000 of this book. Turns out they were very shady, appeared to be the same book, appeared to be the same buyer. So there appeared to be like some shady stuff going on with this. So this had definitely not going for those kind of values. Those were fake sales. But still, raw copies were going for around $100 back then. Still kind of going for a $70 to $100. 9.8s are going for $250, which is more in the range of what, a $70 to $80, $100 comic graded in a modern that grades as a 9.8 is usually a $200, $300 book. This is more in line than that $750 and $1,000 sales. So they put it on the list and they were talking about the manipulation. But I think they put it on the list so they could talk about what was going on with it. Next, we have Miss Marvel #1, the first Kamala Khan solo title is Miss Marvel. I think her second full appearance. Back then, they were talking about raw copies going for $30, which seemed a little odd to me because I was kind of watching for a copy of this book and I didn't remember seeing one go for less than $50, but that's what the video said, and I didn't really go back and check, but it seemed like I missed if it got down to $30 for a raw copy. 9.8s were going for $200. This one has continued to climb. We now know she's been cast since then. We knew the series was coming even back then, but now she's been cast. We've gotten some images from set, and this is going for $70 to $100 raw, $300 for 9.8. And my guess is this will continue to climb once she comes out. Maybe if you haven't gotten in on it yet, maybe now's the time if you want to. But yeah, my guess is Kamala Khan is going to continue to grow in price for most of her books. 3 books to go still, because like I said, we had 19. Next, we have another kind of odd one. This is Marvel Previews #64. And this hit the list because the back cover is an image of Shuri as Black Panther. Again, this is still the fallout from Chadwick Boseman passing away. So this was a true first of her as Black Panther. This obviously came out after she had been introduced as a character, but before she had been turned into Black Panther, people were still specking on this. So it predates the Black Panther #1 in 2009. Raw copies of this were going for $100 to $200 back then. Still going for $100 to $150. A 9.8 recently, there's been one 9.8 sale recently. It went for $230. So it's definitely down. It has not collapsed. People seem to be liking these Marvel previews. Not for me, but hey, if everything was for me, then I would really, I wouldn't have anything because I'd be super poor. So, to those that like it, that's kind of cool. It is definitely the back cover, not the front cover I showed at so the front cover is this image that I'll show now. So yeah, that was, Marvel Previews #64. Next we have Shuri #2. So this is just a cool cover from her series, and it was a low print run, only 21,000 print run on this book. Raw copies were going for $15 to $30 back then. Now they're going 10 to 20. 9.8 still going for $150 to $175. But really the money on this particular cover is on the super low print second print. That's the one that is kind of taken off. I think we'll actually talk about it on the list next week when we do our look back. But yeah, so still a cool Shuri cover. And again, this is all, people specking that she's going to be Black Panther going forward. Finally, our last book of the week is Fantastic Four #52, first appearance of Black Panther. So this seemed odd to me. They talked about there was a big spike in sales, but they talked about that the average sales were going for $3,200. They didn't specify if that was raw, if that was graded, what they were averaging off of. They did say something about a raw 9.0 going for like $5,000, or no, for $3,000, when a 9.0 graded it went for 5 or something, which I don't know how. I don't know. It was just kind of a weird the way they talked about the pricing on this book. But basically, this book has actually continued to increase a little bit. It looks like raw copies now are like $300 to $700, depending on condition. Obviously, if it's a really high grade, it's more, a lot more potentially if it's a really high grade raw copy. But your average mid kind of grade, $300 to $700. 8.5. Most recent 8.5 sale was for $5,000. The most recent 6.0 sale was for $1,200. Classic character, classic book, and definitely one that's going to continue to grow through time. Hasn't jumped quite as much as a lot of other keys here lately, especially Marvel keys. But then again, not necessarily a MCU future for this character, at least as of right now. So that's probably why maybe hasn't taken off like some of the others. So that's this week's list. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.